many of you are familiar with this song since it is our standard theme song for the podcast, but since today is our holiday episode, I thought I'd open with something slightly different. Welcome to the Benzo Free Podcast, your home for an honest, straightforward, and personal discussion about anti-anxiety drugs, their effects, and how to deal with dependence and withdrawal. Whether you have taken benzodiazepines, Z-drugs, or any other tranquilizers, know someone who has, or just want help dealing with chronic anxiety and insomnia, this is your podcast. I'm your host, D.E. Foster, author of the book Benzo Free, The World of Anti-Anxiety Drugs and the Reality of Withdrawal. I'm so glad you joined us today. Please stick around and let me bend your ear for a few minutes. You just might feel a little better on the other side. Hello there, this is D, and welcome to episode 50 of the Benzo Free Podcast. That's right, it's the big 50 for us. Wow, we have reached a milestone here, and I'm pretty stoked about it, I gotta admit. Thanks to all you for getting us here. And while I did a retro best of episode for number 25, and we hit that milestone, I don't really know that it worked that well. And I thought I'd play this one a little bit lower key. I hope that's okay. And in case you noticed something different in the opening this morning, something like perhaps the song, you are correct. I decided that I wanted to do something festive for this episode, so I went with a boogie-woogie version of Carol of the Bells. I hope you liked it. We'll return to our original theme song next episode. And before I get any further, I just want to say Merry Christmas to those who celebrate Christmas. Happy Hanukkah to those who celebrate the Festival of Lights, which I think started this past Sunday. Happy Kwanzaa, which starts tomorrow, the 26th, to all those who celebrate Kwanzaa. Happy Boxing Day, which is also tomorrow, the 26th, to all my friends up north in Canada and many in the UK, Australia, New Zealand, even Bahamas, I think, and many others. I hope you enjoy this holiday, and happy holiday to everyone else. I could spend the rest of this podcast listing all the holidays celebrated this time of year, and trust me, I know because I looked it up. But I think I'll stop there if that's okay with you. Whatever it is you are celebrating this time of year, even if it's the promise of a new year on the horizon, I wish you peace, love, and healing in the year to come. Today is a special episode of the podcast. It's what I like to call our holiday podcast. It's a time to focus on the good things in life, relish in our friends and family gathering around, but mostly to focus on kindness, generosity, and compassion. Regardless of your beliefs, those are just good things to focus on any time of the year. So I hope you like today's episode. In case you can't tell it in my voice, I've been sick these past few days. Yesterday I had a fever of 102 with either the flu or a really bad cold. I never know the difference, but I still have a really deep cough today, a lot of fatigue, and I'm just trying to get through this as best I can, so I apologize for this. Of course, this hit me the day my wife's extended family arrived for the holidays, but you know what? I'm not going to let it get me down. I'm just not this time of year. I rested the entire day yesterday. Her family went skiing in the mountains, and this morning I'm back on my feet somewhat, enough to where I could write the script and record the podcast. Which brings me to our upcoming schedule for the podcast. First off, Today's podcast will be a bit shorter than usual, partly because it's the holidays and I'd like to spend time with my family, and part because I'm under the weather and just not feeling up to doing a full podcast this week. But also, next week I've decided I'm going to be taking a hiatus, just a week off from the podcast, just a break to spend time with the family and recover a bit. I've been going nonstop for the past few months between the road trip, family's demands and crises, and all other things that are going on. It's been a crazy few months for me, and I need to slow down and recover a bit. I just got to be smart and take care of myself here. I often talk about letting yourself heal and not pushing yourself too hard, but sometimes I don't take my own advice. Well, maybe more than sometimes. So next week, I'm leading by example and taking a week off for the new year. I'll be back with a full episode on Wednesday, January 8th, but I'm going to take a week off and just get myself feeling a little bit better. I really appreciate your understanding, and I will still be checking emails periodically during this time, so please feel free to reach out to me if you like. Now, I was going to open this podcast with my gratitudes before moving on to yours, because that's going to be a good chunk of the podcast today. But you all did it so well. I don't think it's needed for me to add mine here. And also, as I started to list mine, this list just kept growing and growing. I have so much, and I am so blessed. I have a loving wife, wonderful family, comfortable home, food, water, health care, and just the list goes on and on and on. But there is one thing I did want to mention in the opening today, and that is my gratitude to each and every one of you. You make this podcast work. I know I say that this is your podcast and that you create much of the content, but it's true. It really is. I'm not saying that as a slogan. I'm not just saying that so I sound altruistic and think I'm trying to give you the credit. I'm just the voice here, and I do some of the research and write some of the material, but half this podcast, if not more, is your input, your feedback. You all make this podcast. It is your podcast. And I am grateful to every one of you, and especially those who have reached out and contacted me. Thank you. That has been amazing, and I really have loved that part of this podcast. You know, in fact, if you will indulge me here for just a bit, I'd like to thank a few of you individually. These are some of you who I have corresponded with via email or through the feedback forum and comments over the past year. I'll only mention your first names so I can protect any privacy. But I just wanted to say thank you by name to some of you. So please, bear with me for a second. I would like to thank Adrian, Alejandro, Alexander, Alexandra, Alexis, Alfredo, Alan, Amy, Andrew, Anne, and Anusha, Arnold, and Ashley. Those were the A's. I'd also like to thank Beatrice, Bernadette, Bonnie, Brad, Brandon, Carla, Caroline, Catherine, Kathy, Sisha, Cheryl, Christina, Christopher, Christy, Cindy, Coco, Cynthia, and Cynthia. And, of course, Daniel, Dave, David, Debbie, Deborah, Denise, Diane, Dorian, Ed, Elizabeth, Elsie, Emily, Emma, Eve, Frank, Geraldine, Glenda, Graham, and Gwen. Oh, yeah, and don't let me forget Heather, Hendy, Holly, Ian, James, Jan, Jane, JB, Jeanette, Jean, Jeannie, Jeff, Jennifer, Jenny, Jessica, Jill, Joanna, John, Jose, Judy, Jurg, Julie, Karen, Carla, Kathleen, Catherine, Kathy, Kevin, Craig, Kyle, Lance, Laura, Leslie, Liam, Linda, Lindsay, Lisa, Liz, Loretta, Lori, Lynn, MJ, Marcia, Margarita, Mark, Marlene, Martin, Mary, Marianne, Matt, Maureen. As for the M's, I'd like to thank MJ, Marcia, Margarita, Marianne, Mark, Marlene, Martin, Mary, Marianne, Matt, Maureen, Max, Maya, Mel, Melissa, Melody, Michelle, Michael, Michelle, Mike, Mila, Milan, Miranda, Monica, and Monty. And of course, don't forget Nancy, Naomi, Nicole, Nina, and then PJ, Pam, Patricia, Paul, Penny, Peter, Phil, Pinar, R, Rafferty, Ray, Richard, Rick, Robert, Roy, Rubiat, Rushi, Sam, Samantha, Sandy, Sarah, Sue, Stephanie, Steve, Steven, Suzanne, Susie, Tamara, Teresa, Terry, Tim, Tina, Todd, Tom, Tracy, Trevor, Vanessa, Velma, and Wendy. Sorry, guys. I just wanted to have a little bit of fun there this morning, but I also did want to thank everybody. There were over 200 names on that list. Each one is somebody that I have corresponded with directly, either via our email, comment forms, or feedback form through the podcast. Each of you was a person who cared enough to reach out, to seek help, to learn how to help others, or just to let me know how you are doing or what you thought of the podcast. That is amazing. And I know that's just the tip of the iceberg. I know there are many others out there. That's probably only a quarter of our regular listeners. This information I get from you, not directly, and of course I never share anything publicly that you don't tell me to. But just that composite, hearing different stories, hearing what you're struggling with, hearing what's working for you, what's not working for you, where your mind's gone. It connects with my experiences, but mostly it connects with others' experiences that I'm listening to and corresponding with. And even in this benzo-addled brain of mine, I can put that together and kind of create this generalized overall experience of what this thing is like. And while nobody is the same and we are all different in this experience, I think it's helping me understand better what you need, what you're going through, and what's happening. And I just got to say thank you. I got to say thank you because I couldn't have any of that without you. That is what I am grateful for this year. Today, as I mentioned up front, we have an abbreviated format. It's a shortened episode since D wants to spend some time with his family and recovering. We will have our intro, which you just heard, followed by our feature, which are your gratitudes, and close out with our moment of peace. We won't have our mailbag today or our benzo story, but we will return to our normal format next episode, which will be in 2 weeks. And we still need feedback, as always. Questions, comments, stories, suggestions, corrections, additions, and maybe what you'd like to see on the podcast in 2020. I'd really like to hear that. Anyway, this is your podcast, and the more content I can share from you, the more Benzo Free becomes a community it was designed to be. So please, tell us what you think. Visit our feedback form at benzofree.org/feedback or email us at podcast@benzofree.org. Or comment directly on the podcast blog post itself for others to see. And don't forget to sign up for our mailing list at benzofree.org/subscribe. And one last thing. The Benzo Free podcast is for informational purposes only and should never be considered medical advice. If you're listening to this podcast on one of our providers, please leave feedback on that carrier. This helps new listeners find us. Okay. Now, without delay, let's move on to our gratitudes. As most of you know, for the past couple of weeks, I have asked for you to send in some gratitudes that I could share on today's podcast. And you have responded. Thank you so much for that. Some of these gratitudes are multi-paragraph stories. Others are only a line or two in length. Now, when I started to add these gratitudes to the script today as I was writing it out, I also started to add my own comments to them, to each one. Much like I do before and after I say a benzo story. about how I've been corresponding with this person for months, or how helpful this person's been to the podcast, or how I've connected with this person on our secret love of navel lint. But as I started to write them, I realized that they weren't needed. Each and every one of these people have been a friend to me, whether we've been chatting for 1 week or 1 year. And since you already heard my number one gratitude in the intro, I decided it's time for me to step aside for this section and let you, the Benzo Free Community, share the things you are most grateful for. I wanted to include these exactly as submitted, so these are some of the gratitudes I received, raw and unedited. I hope you like them as much as I did. Jenny in New England writes, I am grateful that we have this benzo-free community to openly share about our struggles with benzodependence and the brain injury-induced syndrome as we heal. My life has drastically changed due to this experience, and although it was very painful both mentally and physically, I have a new appreciation for things in life that I didn't even notice when I was on benzos. What I most value out of being on the other side of benzo hell is helping others get it so that they may enjoy life again. Health is never to be taken for granted again. Bless all those in the depths of acute and know that there is life worth living, both in recovery and after. Caroline in the United Kingdom writes, I am grateful for D. I am also grateful for the windows I've recently been getting. Best wishes to all. My friend in Michigan, who prefers to stay anonymous, writes, as I clear the 3-year, 2-month mark since getting off benzos, there is much for which I am grateful. Having the majority of physical symptoms behind, real hope that there is a finish line for this process, greater appreciation for smaller things in life, thanks that there is a podcast forum that really speaks to my situation and not one of addiction. Grateful that by necessity I've had to critically look at and improve both diet and exercise in my life. Tremendous gratitude for feeling good, especially when emerging from a wave. Becoming more aware of the sources of my underlying anxiety and actively working through these. As a result of this journey, I found my way to Al-Anon and have found more support and answers for my life than found in years of therapy. There's my 2 cents worth. We're leaving in 7 days for Christmas in New Orleans and Natchez. Holiday time as a child was a nightmare of my mother going off the rails and by changing the physical environment. Not in Michigan, no snow, more sun. It's like a huge undoing of the past. This New Year's Eve marks the 10th year of my father's passing. And like so many milestone anniversaries, it is evoking a lot of memories, some sweet and some bitter. Finally, I am grateful to have met you and have someone appreciative of the medical research being sent their way. Terry writes, I am grateful for having survived my ordeal with Ativan, and that it lasted only 6 months from start to finish. I am grateful for my dogs. They love and comfort me no matter what, and I enjoy caring for them and giving them good lives. And I am grateful for my health and abilities. Joanna in Ontario, Canada writes, a few things I am grateful for. A supportive husband emotionally, physically, and financially. A large sensory home with lots of good energy and breathing room. A Buddhist center with a very wise Buddhist nun to clear the cobwebs. My grown children who accept my boundaries without complaint. The river and forest near my home that allow me to heal, hike, bike, and snowshoe. a curious mind to dig, educate, and not give up. To live in a part of the world that is free of war and offers lots of choices. A strong physical body that allows me to push through. And last but not least, I am grateful for your podcast, D. You are a friend who shares his insight and struggles every week, and I feel you understand me. Graham in the United Kingdom writes, I am grateful to all those people who have given their unconditional love and support to me. Sarah in Pennsylvania writes, Hi D, I will try to add to your gratitude request, as hard as it is sometimes. My feelings of gratitude come and go these days, but here we go. I feel great gratitude for the ability to get off of Klonopin. Didn't think it was possible 2 years ago. I feel tremendous gratitude for my amazing daughter and her amazing daughter, my 3-year-old granddaughter. I love them. I feel grateful for having a truly supportive husband of everything I choose to do. I feel grateful for my warm, comfy home, electricity, plumbing, quiet when needed, and comfy bed. I feel grateful for a caring liberal family who all get it, and apparently excellent family genes. Oh, and I definitely feel grateful that I am able to get back to acting after over a year off. Hope these are helpful, D. Merry Christmas, Sarah. Rick in South Carolina writes, I was on Klonopin for 14 years as prescribed. My taper was a nightmare. I finally found a psychiatrist in Charleston who believed me and helped me off. I have been benzo free 4 months. I never thought I would get to a full window where my feeling and energy came back. I walked 30 minutes this morning with my dog along a stream. I thank God for my return to life. I am listening to your road trip podcast. I am in the North Carolina mountains for Christmas. 9 people, 4 dogs, and 1 bathroom. I am feeling 95% better. I wish you a Merry Christmas. Beatrice in Zurich, Switzerland writes, It seems that you are living quite a normal life. I am very glad. So we are all getting better as time goes on. I love traveling so much, and we are planning to drive to Sweden this summer. At least I hope so. I am sleeping much better, can go to the university for seniors to listen to very interesting lectures, but for my broken brain it is a challenge. Everything is still stressing me, but I am more or less able to calm myself. The breakdowns are getting less, and the morning fears are diminishing, also the fears at night. I am able to invite friends, but I am still very often very tired. My body is still kind of weak, and I hope so much being able to ski in winter vacation. I recently experienced an important thing. Often a disappointment turns into a good thing. For example, in Austria we were missing a bus, which would have led us back to the hotel. And in the moment of sadness, we met a nice couple. We drove back to the hotel with them in their car, had some interesting discussions, and were even faster at home than with the bus. Many, many little stories like this occurred this year. Strolling alone in a sad mood through the landscape near our house, I met all of a sudden a nice neighbor, and we had a good time together. I invited 20 girlfriends for my 60th birthday for a guided art tour in Zurich. A wonderful, happy day with 20 happy women. A paradise for me. I love to organize such events. My nerve problems were not so severe that day. The trips to Austria in spring and the trip to Italy in summer were other happy moments. I am really looking forward to days without nerve problems, with a good night's sleep and a calm heart, and above all, a brain that is working quick and well. Now I wish you and your family and Bear a happy, healthy Christmas and many, many happy, strong moments in 2020. Thank you so much for your podcasts, for your energy to fight for all of us who struggle with this horrific withdrawal syndrome. Sad enough, in Switzerland, doctors are giving benzos in the clinics and are not enough aware how difficult it is for some to get rid of the pills. I send you and your wife a big hug. Beatrice. Steve in Iowa writes, I am very grateful for my wife and children. They keep me going all the time, even if they do not know it. Family and friends are so important, even if they do not know what you are struggling with. I could write for a day about all the things I am grateful for. I try not to take anything for granted during and after this whole ordeal. Thank you also, Dee, and all you do to help a lot of people. Nancy in the United Kingdom writes, I am grateful for my amazing husband who has cared for me. Listened to my relentless moaning and groaning, not so much now. Held me tight when I've been scared. Loved me unconditionally. And has always stayed positive and 100% committed to getting us through this. He continues to be my rock, my cook, my cleaner, my comedian, my best friend, and my soulmate. I am so grateful for his love. I am grateful that I can go to the charity shop and volunteer for a few hours a couple of times a week. I am grateful for the new friendships I now have with some of the staff. I'm grateful that by volunteering, I can give something back and feel a bit useful and not useless like I was feeling. I am grateful that some of my withdrawal symptoms are gone and only a few remain. It's still tough and still scary, but on a lot of days I feel positive that I will eventually recover. I am grateful to you, Dee, for your dedication, your empathy, your strength, and your humor. And of course, your podcasts. They pick me up every Wednesday. I'm sure there are many, many more things to be grateful for, but I'll stick at these for now, as these are the most important ones to me. Nancy. And we'll close out our gratitudes today with this one from Trevor in Canada. Trevor writes, I have been thinking about this question of gratitude and what to write. I have many things to be grateful for in my life, and I could easily put together the top 2 or 3. But that didn't really seem right for a benzo withdrawal support resource community. So I decided to look at it from the perspective of what do I have since entering withdrawal, December 17th, 2018, that I can truly be grateful for. Then it became clear. I am in no way grateful to have had my brain and nervous system scrambled and fricasseed by withdrawal. But I am incredibly grateful for the amazing opportunity this experience has presented to me. It gave me the opportunity to get myself out of a really dangerous cycle of stress, poor diet, alcohol, poor sleep, and a deteriorating relationship with my family. Since the dark days a year ago, I have lost 30 pounds, transformed my diet, stopped drinking, exercise every day, relearned to cook, meditate twice a day, learned Tai Chi, learned yoga, am taking online courses, and have repaired my relationship with my wife, my daughter, my aged parents, and even the dog. If you asked me a year ago to just take a year off to transform my life, I would have laughed bitterly and continued on my self-destructive path. Who has time to do that? I hate every minute of my diminishing bucket of symptoms, and that I still can't hold a decent job. But I know that with this new collection of behaviors and skills, I will end up far, far better than I would have even if I had never used benzos ever at all. I am, of course, incredibly grateful to you, Dee, for the creation of Benzo Free, and to all the listeners and contributors of your podcast that share their stories, experiences, and knowledge. It really made a difference for me, and I'm sure many, many others. Merry Christmas to the whole Benzo Free community, and I hope your Christmas present this year is as good as the one mine ultimately turned out to be last year. For good and for bad, it's the gift that keeps giving. All the best, Trevor. I just have to say thank you to every single one of those who submitted your gratitudes. They made today's podcast, and they made the whole year of podcasts. Your feedback, your contributions, your information, your research, your experiences are benzo free. I think Trevor nailed it in the end there. What he's come to find from his experience with benzos is where I've come to, and where many others who I've talked to have also come to. It's this realization that we would never wish this on our worst enemy or on ourselves would we ever want to sign up for it again. But that doesn't mean there isn't good that comes out of it, especially if you decide to make the most of this experience. You can change this from a tragedy to an opportunity. I truly believe we can all do this. It's not easy, but we can make the best of this, come out of it better, and have an amazing and exciting life on the other side. And now, if you don't mind, we're going to pause for 30 seconds for our disclaimer. Thanks. This podcast is for informational purposes only and should not be considered medical advice in any way. The host of this podcast is not a medical professional, nor is he engaged in rendering medical, health, or psychological advice, nor any other kind of personal or professional services. The views and opinions expressed by our listeners and interview guests on this podcast, whether read from textual submissions or presented in their own voice, do not necessarily reflect those of the Benzo Free podcast or of its host. Withdrawal, tapering, or any other change in dosage of benzodiazepines, non-benzodiazepines, or any other prescription drug should only be done under the direct supervision of a licensed physician. Our full disclaimer can be viewed on our website at benzofree.org/disclaimer. And that brings us to our closing, our moment of peace. It's just 1 minute, and it's an opportunity to quiet your mind a bit before you return to the chaos of the real world. The way this works is that I will give you a brief introduction, perhaps a suggestion of something to focus on. Then I will play a soft bell which will indicate the start of the 1 minute. This will be followed by another soft bell which will indicate the end of the 1 minute. And that will be the end of the episode. Feel free to continue to meditate if you choose. If not, continue on with your day. Please remember that you should only do this if you are in a safe place, where you can close your eyes, relax, and let the world pass by without you for a minute. Today will be a gratitude meditation to fit in with today's episode. All you have to do is focus on something you're grateful for. Even if it's just a home, shelter, love, family, friends, you name it. Pick something you are grateful for. Visualize it if you choose, and focus on that for a while. So let's get started. Close your eyes and relax. Take a deep breath in. Hold it for a second. and let it out slowly. Let's do that again. Take a deep breath in. Hold it for a second. And let it out slowly along with all the stress of your day. One more time. Take a deep breath in. Hold it for a second. Then let the breath out slowly, relaxing your entire body. Now just breathe slowly and naturally. And focus on something you are grateful for. If your mind wanders, just gently bring it back to your point of focus. No judgment at all. Continue to do this for 1 minute. Our next episode is episode 51, and it will be released in 2 weeks. Thank you again for joining me today, and please, let me know how we did. Keep calm, taper slowly, and take care of yourself. I'll see you next time.